Welcome to the Lightforge. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Welcome back. We are deeply in the Knights of the Frozen Throne meta. I had to actually remind myself. I didn't want to just call it the KFT meta. I want to give it all of its glory.
You mean the synergy meta?
The synergy meta. The Murloc, Elemental, and
egg. So many eggs still.
So many eggs still. So, as you guys probably can tell if you've played the arena recently, synergies are still here. They will be here for at least the short, foreseeable future. And we'll definitely talk about that in a little bit. But
yeah, so if you guys didn't know, I mean, you're just listening to Lightforge, you don't check Reddit or something. We posted the last Lightforge onto Reddit on Hearthstone and got a pretty big response. Over 7,000 net upvotes. The story was picked up by Hearthstone, by PC Gamer, by Metabomb, maybe others. I don't know. People have been sending me random articles, and it really became a thing. We got responses from the Blizzard devs. Ixar made a few posts in response. Ben Brode himself made a post. So a lot of things are happening, and we'll talk about that at the end because none of it really affects the actual arena meta. Which, as you'll see, remains basically unchanged. The only thing that has changed at this point from last week when, we were trying to figure out the egg meta is, well, there were two things, and we'll just outline them first before we go on to the next subject. First, it's that the cards that were missing in the arena, the KFT cards that were not in the arena for no apparent reason, they're all in the arena now. So you'll see a bit more KFT cards based on that, including two pretty key cards, one of which is Hildnir Frost Rider, the 3-mana 4/4 that freezes your own board, but still really good curve card. And the other big one is the Grave Shambler. The Grave Shambler, another neutral card. It's a 4-mana 4/4, and if your weapon is destroyed, which I recently found out means if you use up your weapon. So if your weapon is destroyed, it gets a +1/+1, which means in Rogue, it's actually really good. So our tier list doesn't reflect that right now because I didn't know how that's how the mechanic worked. But they're in now, and they're neutrals, and they're everywhere. So the amount of KFT cards has gone up by a little on that. Other than that, we still don't know what the actual offering rate is for KFT cards, what the offering bonus is. It's definitely not 100%. And Blizzard, Ixar said he would find out and tell us, but that hasn't happened yet, so we're still waiting on that. And the synergy picks are still in, as Merb said. They've been slightly altered in that there are now more KFT cards in them. I think Blizzard added a couple of cards for each class from KFT or not KFT into the pool. So instead of a pool of 8 cards, you now have a pool of 10, 11 cards to choose from. That's like a plus 33% increase in diversity of your synergy picks. That's actually huge. If you take the basis starting point as what the system is that they started with, that's a huge change. So we'll talk about that stuff later, but those are the actual changes that have happened up until this point. And so let's talk about practical stuff, right? We're all still playing the arena, so let's talk about what's happening in the arena.
Hopefully.
How do you do well in the arena? What classes are good? What cards are good? What is this weird KFT synergy meta that's happening?
Sure. So I want to talk a little bit about, I guess, a couple of the surprises in the KFT meta in terms of class. So first, I want to talk about Druid, which has been held down for such a long time, right? It's been many, many expansions since Druid has been anywhere near top tier. You can argue it was like mid tier for a lot of it. But if you look at the stats, Druid has been suffering from many expansions already. And I think we can confidently say that Druid is in the top tier right now. You don't have to say it's the best class, but I don't think you can really argue that it is one of the best classes right now. So I think we can definitely break it down.
It's the top class. I think it's pretty clearly the top class. I don't know. It feels insanely powerful, at this point.
It does feel really good. Although right now, like you jokingly said at the beginning, it is also a synergy meta as well.
Yeah, and you know what Druids have?
beasts.
Really good synergies because they have all the beasts. Some of the like a lot of really powerful druid cards are quote unquote synergy cards, so they're really boosted there. And you know who can trigger eggs? Druids, because they are one of the few classes with their own attack buffs, right? Your paladins have attack buffs, and your druids have your attack buffs, and not many other classes have more than one like attack buff available to them. So that's a huge bonus to druid in this meta. So we're not just talking powerful cards. This is not just Ultimate Infestation. This is not just Webweave, Druid of the Swarm, Crypt Lord, which is rising a lot back into its rightful place on the tier list now that we have gotten rid of Merps's totally irrational hate on this card. And Spreading Plague, of course, the ultimate of stall cards. They're all going up a lot. I mean, they're all just really good cards, and they're almost all of the cards that Druids have seen. So a lot of good cards, plus a very good fit with the synergy meta, has brought Druid, I think, back to the very top.
Right. Druid right now in a great spot. You've highlighted two big reasons why, right? Like whenever you make a change that affects all classes evenly, some will benefit more than others. Druid is a big sort of, synergy class, right? It does a lot of stuff with beasts, and it also has a lot of cards.
It's not a big synergy class. I think it's the wrong way to phrase it, because Druid's actually like a very not synergy class, which is what makes it good. It's because the synergies Blizzard has decided qualify for Druid synergies are good by themselves without synergies. Yes, and that's what you need in a synergy meta. You need to have no synergies. So when you have no synergies, and we covered this in the last Lightforge, the best way to get out of the synergy meta is to not have synergies and to draft against the synergy meta. So once you're not in the synergy world, you have better cards, right? And your opponents are like being led down this weird path where they have a crappy deck. So Druids have a lot of options in the no synergy area, or like the very little synergy area with beasts, like good stuff that works with beasts, and you have like 8 beasts in your deck anyway. It's not like elementals where you're expected like 2 elementals or 3 elementals at most in your deck, and then you have to find a way to make the elemental synergies work. So it's a very good floor for Druids, as well as the eggs, which can actually be triggered, right?
Yes, and I think a good example of something you just said was Mark of Yasharaj, right? Which it's good synergy for beasts, but at the same time, it's also just a good card, and you're happy playing it on another minion in order to just get an advantageous trade as well. A lot of times you're just happy to get +2/+2. It's not one of those synergy cards in which if you don't hit your synergy or if you don't hit a condition, it's the base value is extremely low, right? So I think that's a good example. One thing I wanted to point out was the importance of, I guess, intra-expansion synergy, right? Where if you look at all of the cards that Druid has been offered in this expansion, you can see that like there's internal synergy here. And I think that definitely helps out a lot. So one of the cards I wanted to talk about is Strong Shell Scavenger, right? Which is a card that when it first came out, I was just like, I kind of passed it. It wasn't that exciting of a card. So guys, Strong Shell Scavenger, man, that's a little bit of a tongue twister there, is a 4-mana rare 2/3 minion with Battle Cry. Give your taunt minions +2/+2. I looked at it, I was like, okay, right. If you hit a minion, it's sort of like kind of like a Defender of Argus sort of thing, right? But it's conditional. It could be better. The standard deviation is a little bit bigger. So
it's more like Shattered Sun Cleric, I think, in that it only needs to hit 1 minion to really get its value. And it has an upside, unlike Shattered Sun Cleric, where if it's multiple minions, even just 2, it gets a ton of value.
Right, and it's downsizing a lot, because you have to play it empty, right? It's a lot worse. But if you look at this card and say, well, it gives taunt minions extra stats, look at the other cards. Druid of the Swarm can transform into a 1/5 taunt, right? That's their 2-drop. Spreading Plague, it's all taunts, so that's really sick. Crypt Lord, your favorite card?
Crypt Lord, it's so good. It's a Mogushan that grows for 3 mana, like insane.
Yeah. And their legendary even, has internal synergy, right? Hadronox, the 9-mana 3/7 beast, Also, Beast Synergy.
Ah,
With Death Rattle, summon your top minions that died this game. Because you have an increased offering rate that we don't know of, but because it does happen.
it exists. I want to say it's like 50%.
Yeah.
Like it feels like 50%. I really don't know. But it's not like definitely not nothing, and it's definitely not 100%. So in my mind, it's 50%. It could be higher. I don't think it's lower than 50%.
So because you have this sort of intra-expansion synergy on cards that are independently good already, you already take Druid of the Swarm, you already take Crypt Lord, you already take Spreading Plague. And with that, like you're already taking these cards anyways, and the fact that they all synergize with Strong Shell Scavenger, that sort of like elevates the Druid further, right? When you have independently good cards that also help each other out.
Yep. And I mean, we underestimated the Scavenger when we were looking at it. Like, it has a very low score on our tier list. It's going to be higher. We're going to do a major tier list update, I want to say tomorrow night. And it'll move a lot of the new cards that we thought we missed on into better alignment, and it'll have a slightly more sophisticated systems on some of the things. So that's one of the cards with probably like one of the biggest movements. And we're also adjusting better for the meta with it. Like eggs are going to move up, that kind of stuff. But yeah, one thing I want to talk about in addition to what Merps was saying about the interclass synergies is the exact opposite of that, which is raw power. Raw power. And the Druid has that more than any other class in this expansion. And the raw power that's happening right now, a lot of it is actually coming from this epic card, Ultimate Infestation, which is our card Good Bad that we're going to just weave into this class tier list topic here.
Weave. Just like their web weave card.
Oh, okay. They're totally balanced web weave card. So Ultimate Infestation, by the way, Blizzard, just like a huge thank you for changing web weave to 5 mana from 4 mana last minute. 1, 4 mana would have been crazy, and I'm glad you guys realized it. And 2, to the extent that it would have been like a really insanely good constructed card, it would have like flat out broken Druid for Arena. So thank you for making this 5 mana.
You can't have web weave for 4 mana. That would have been insane.
Yeah, and especially now, like we keep talking about how good Druid is. You'll hear the exact parallel conversation happening on the constructed side right now, where Druid is being used. I'm just like looking at the top of like Reddit right now. It's like,
oh yeah,
Druid is being used more than Death Rattle Hunter. Sorry, not Death Rattle. What is that card? The Pirate Hunter card. Death Lord? No, not Death Lord. The one that keeps growing. What? The 1 mana card that kept growing that was really good and constructed. Undertaker. I knew it had something to do with death. Undertaker Hunter. That it's being Druids right now are more popular than Undertaker Hunter back in the day. Which, if you remember, Undertaker Hunter was like the scourge. Like, so easy to play. Everyone played it. Okay.
Yeah, you confused me with the Pirate Hunter.
All right. I just meant like shady outlaw, you know, whatever. Which hunters aren't usually. They're usually like beasts and nature. So this was like one of those like differently themed cards.
You know, Undertaker was so close to Pirate. Anyways, please go
on. But yeah, so this is like an overall problem. Except it's not a problem in the arena, right? Because Druid had not been the best class since Classic, and I don't think it was ever the best class in Classic. It was definitely a lot better in Classic. So I don't think this is a problem that Druid is #1, but the reasons that it became #1 is fairly clear, I think, to anyone looking at it. And card Good Bad is Ultimate Infestation. We could have picked any of the Druid's cards, but I want to pick the most game-changing one, which is Ultimate Infestation. That is the 10 mana card that deals 5 damage, draws 5 cards, gains 5 armor, and summons a 5/5 ghouls. You don't lose any tempo, you heal up a little so you don't die, and on top of that, you get 5 cards. And I think the interesting debate, like, this is a silly card Good Bad. Yes, it's good. It's 226 on the tier list. Like, Gorehowl is better. I think Fiery War Axe may be better. Maybe Fiery War Axe isn't even better. Fiery War Axe is better. Pyros is better. That's pretty much it, right? Like, this is an insane card. Everyone knew it was going to be insane. It turns out it is insane. We got a 12 win because we had 2 of them in the deck like a couple days ago.
The second one was for more consistency rather than you use both of them.
Yeah, oh yeah, we like never use. Now we use both of them once, but like other than that, like you don't use both of them. But like that's how good this card is. That you care so much about the consistency, you actually want 2 of these in your deck, even though you clearly don't want to actually ever play 2 of them. Like that's how weird how powerful this card is. So I really wanted this as a jumping off point for this like Reddit post, which I think it raises a really good question. And it starts with unpopular opinion, and it says 10 mana cards should be as powerful as Ultimate Infestation. Like, the problem is not Ultimate Infestation is overpowered. The problem is that all other 10 mana cards are underpowered.
Right. Yeah. I remember that post, and my feelings towards that are quite complicated. Did you ask this? Like, did you want to continue on, or are you legitimately asking?
I'm curious about what you think about it. I don't have like a terribly well prepared like thought thing in it. I only saw the post today, right? But I think it's a very interesting topic because clear power creep, right? Like Ultimate Infestation is one of the most blatantly stupid examples of power creep. But it's also a part of game design, right? Like, is this just the point in which you start moving 10 mana cards up?
So my thought about it is this. Blizzard has historically recognized their mistake that, okay, we can't make the early game too strong, right?
Yeah.
There's no more zombie chows, there's no more haunted creepers. That's a good thing. That's very healthy. This is a more, I guess, murky area, because if you are able to play a 10 mana card, like one of the hidden costs of playing a 10 mana card is you have done lots of stuff to get there, right? In order to navigate yourself to turn 10 and be able to play the card without immediately dying afterwards, right?
Right.
So that is one of the hidden costs of that. One of the, I guess, problems I see with making 10 mana cards too powerful, like if they just gave an Ultimate Infestation card to every single
neutral
class,
card,
right? Or a neutral card, what would end up happening in the arena? Like, it obviously depends on what other cards they come out with, right? But it definitely favors sort of your ability to just get there, right? Like, it kind of doesn't matter what your mid game is. Like, it just favors like stall, and it sort of de-emphasizes the middle turns, not in terms of like, you know, your decision making or anything, but you don't have that like push anymore, right? Because
let me summarize what you're trying to say, which is that once you have Ultimate Infestation and enough of it that people are reasonably going to have access to Ultimate Infestation once you hit 10 mana, everything before 10 mana becomes 100% or 0%, meaning you win the game before that, or it doesn't matter. Nothing you have done up to that point matters. And
I don't like that polarization, right? Because you can't be in the middle ground. You can't like say, well, I mean, I'm not going to go for the Ultimate Infestation win, and I'm not going to go for like the fast win, right? Like it basically just
but not fast. The mid-game win.
Right. Sorry. I think the mid-game win is a better description for it. And I think that's what would ultimately happen if they made either neutral 10 mana really powerful stuff, or just gave like an Ultimate Infestation level power card to all the other classes.
Yeah. I think it's a legitimate worry. So one thing our algorithm does when it's ranking the cards, like we take mana into account. We penalize 10 mana cards decently heavily. And this card is still topping the charts. So I think, and I don't know, I mean, I'm sure Blizzard doesn't have access to our algorithm or anything too similar to it on their end. But I think this is like, I trust our algorithm enough at this point to at least, I think, definitively say that Ultimate Infestation is overpowered. They have gone overboard. This is without knowing anything about Constructed. Just, they have put too much stuff into this one card. And this is a card that fits in every single deck that is not, like, aggressive. Like, if you're going to get to 10 mana turns, you want this card in your deck. It just does too much.
Right.
And so, when it comes to design, I don't think it should quite get up to this level, but I don't think it's far off. Like, I agree. I don't think there's a problem with a 10 mana card being 200 rated. Like, I feel like 200 is the top for what, like, really insanely good cards should be. And you can get there. Like, would Ultimate Infestation really be that much worse if you, like, made it draw, like, 2 less cards, for example? No, it wouldn't be. And that would be, in my opinion, a balanced card, at least for the arena. right? And I imagine for constructed too.
I was gonna say that. Like, if it's deal 5 damage, summon a 5/5 ghoul, draw, you know,
3
like
cards.
3 cards, or even 2 cards,
Even
right?
2
Like,
cards. Well,
draw
2 cards would be
cards,
not insanely good. It would just be like regular premium.
regular premium. Sure, sure. Draw 3 cards and gain 5 armor,
Mm-hmm.
or get rid of the armor, because the armor is actually
the
really
armor's
important,
really
right?
good though.
It's really important.
Yeah.
I know. So if you get rid of the armor, that's actually a huge deal because, like, you need that to sort of stabilize, right? Otherwise, you're not.
Yep.
You have the initiative, but with 10 mana, you kind of almost want like a little bit more impact. So yeah, I agree. I think it has to be sort of almost this level, but not. Like, 10 mana cards should always have initiative. I think we agree with that. Or they should.
Or if they're not, if they don't have initiative, then they're just not supposed to be good. Like, yeah, no, like, you can print cards that are not good. Blizzard does it all the time, right? They want people to have the experience of leveling up their deck, basically. That's fine. And in the arena, we like cards that are not good, as long as it's not unplayable. If it's just not good, arena is a great place for it because it forces you to play these cards, right? And like you said, Ultrasaur, right? Ultrasaur is rated a 107 on our tier list right now because in this meta, you typically get pretty deep into the game, and you can generally afford to spend to do nothing on a turn, like once. So Ultrasaur is like a playable card now in a way that it wasn't that much in the Ungoro meta, and if it was a card like 3 metas ago, it would be like totally unplayable. But yeah, exactly. Like, this is it's I wouldn't say it's a problem, but it's definitely a reason why Druid is so high, right? You add the fact that they do have ramp, and in the arena you can get ramp. We rate a wild growth right now at a 124, which is literally the highest wild growth has ever been rated on our tier list ever. Partly because of what the meta is doing and the fact that you have ultimate infestation to ramp up to. So, like, normally we rate wild growth like a pretty normal card, right? Like, it's like an average card. It's usually like 100, like within 5 points of 100. But this is some serious serious considerations for wild growth. I had a double wild growth deck that won 11 wins, and it had an ultimate infestation and 2 ancient of lores, which are not even that good anymore in the arena. But the idea is it gave me stuff to do when I got to high mana, and that's a very good way to play Druid right now. To ramp. Like, ramp is very useful. If you had any reservations about ramp before this meta, now's the time to ditch them. This is the meta in the arena for ramp.
Yep, I agree. So I think we kind of properly summarized why Druid is really good, right? And as for right now, our tier list consists of Druid, Paladin, and Rogue in the top tier. I don't think we have to talk about Paladin and Rogue.
Everyone knows why they're good.
Right. They've sort of been historically good.
Yeah, and I've just, in case some people still think Paladin was going to get knocked down because all of their cards suck except for one, that one card is insanely good. First of all, it is the Righteous Protector, which is a 1-mana taunt 1/1 with Divine Shield, and we're actually raising it in the next tier list update.
I've lost because of this card so many times.
Right? It's just like it blocks for everything. It costs nothing. You can play it in every single time you see it. Like, it's a really great card. So whatever, like, I guess reputation the Paladin may have of getting like crap this expansion, it's not that bad. It's not as bad as people are making it out to be. And 2, it's still Paladin, right? It fits into what the expansion is trying to do, right? It just gives you even more consistent buffs. So it's fine. Paladin's fine at the top. Rogue is still... Rogue, I feel like, will always be fine unless you actually give it totally crap cards for a long time. Like, it's just... The hero power is too powerful. Like, of an early game control thing.
Yep.
So then we get to Hunter, Mage, and Warlock, making up our second tier. You want to talk a bit about Hunter? I think you have a lot more experience with that than I do.
Sure. I like the like where Hunter is at right now, because initially when I looked at Hunter, I was just like, man, they got a lot of very slow cards, right? They got basically no 1-drops and no 2-drops. And typically when I see that for an expansion, I'm just like, all right, Hunter's not dead, but they're really going to suffer, right? It's the expansions in which they've had offering bonuses to good 1-drops and good 2-drops that they've really sort of feasted on the slower classes. So in Angora, when they had Crackling Razor Maul, that was just insane, right? Because it wasn't too hard to get a turn 1 beast, and then on turn 2, you get a good adapt and you just win. Looking at this expansion, you have Bear Shark, which is nice, but it's a turn 3 sort of vanilla minion. And then you have Stitch Tracker, which we disagree on this, right? But it is more of a, not more, it is a card draw minion instead of a temple minion. And then I look at stuff like Exploding Bloatbat, which is just an AoE and not really a drop. And I thought that Hunter was going to suffer a lot, but what ended up happening is you can still draft faster than your opponents, right? Which is the only thing that matters. It's not about the absolute speed of your deck or a class. It is about the relative speed. And relatively, Hunters can still be faster.
I pointed this out when we were reviewing it. It was Rogue, Paladin, and Hunter that can still go fast.
Yes.
The other classes can sort of maybe go fast, and then Shamans really can't at all. But this was always where it was headed. I think I made a pretty good prediction about the speed of the Hunter, at least, and I was always less down on where the Hunter was going in KFT than you were, because I was relying upon more the mid-range game, which I do think is, like you said, right, it got bolstered. The mid-range game for Hunter definitely got bolstered. And you're just happy that the faster game is still preserved, right? That's still an option when you're drafting. You're not screwed.
Right. And with Hunter, it's always a little bit tough to see where it falls in the meta beforehand, because it is relative, right? It's relative to the other classes. But right now, other classes are definitely going very slow. Or one of the best things is that when you develop a board, it is hard to take the board away from you, right? Yes. So as a Hunter, you're still faster. You're able to develop the board. You still have good tempo cards in Freezing Trap and Hunter's Mark, and you can just capitalize on that.
Yeah, and you know what happens if you're fast enough? Reward the board is happening in KFT. So the Hunter's always going to try to, even a mid-range Hunter is going to try to be faster than your opponent's deck. And to whatever extent you succeed, you can now actually capitalize on it in more ways than just getting more face damage. Because it's not like Hunters actually had a way to capitalize on the board that they're always looking to get besides hit face, right? Which I understand that's the model of the Hunter, but there's a little more diversity now in how you're using that board. And I think it's a very good element to add to Hunter, which was already, the thing with going to be a very aggressive Hunter that needs to track exactly how many turns it takes to kill the opponent or whatever, it's very hard to play, but it's also very one-dimensional. It's about flipping the switch, and it takes a lot of skill to know when that switch flips and how to set up the switch, but it's just one shot. You mess up that shot, you lose the game. You make that shot, you win 80% of your games. Now, there's the more, the Hunter that I'm more comfortable with, which is, mid-rangey, but you can still go fast and get there because of the buffs. You have a different way of approaching the problem. Which may not be the better way in whatever situations, but it may be the better way in certain situations. And now you have more thinking to do as a Hunter player, because you can get out of your original paradigm of face or no face, and to
always face.
Maybe face and get these good, preserving the board, so that next turn I have a buff that would trigger, right? Let's say a Corpse Raiser or something that will really help me establish the board in a much bigger way than before. So all these neutral cards, they do help Hunter, because Hunters have the initiative on the board, which means they get to make these kinds of decisions, even though they're typically not getting the same result, the same type of value, right? Face damage value that they were getting before.
Right. So in terms of, has the Hunter playstyle changed? It hasn't changed. The speed of Hunter is a little bit different, and maybe how you flip the switch.
I think it has changed. I don't think you can say it hasn't changed. But just the fact that you have more options means it's changed. If you're now much more incentivized to trade on the board, that's changing. You're now punished more when you leave your opponent's minions up, especially when they can taunt them or do stuff to them. And you're more incentivized to preserve your own board, which going face is usually less good about preserving your own board than making the good trades on the board. So I think there's a lot more shift now towards making board trades when you have the board as a Hunter.
I think we agree on that. And then really the distinction between whether or not the playstyle changes depends on whether or not we define that as a change, right? Because for me, I always see sort of, the decision of making, because it's not about whether or not you flip the switch. You always
flip the switch, yeah.
Right. It's just a matter of like, well, there's different cards now, like different.
Well, unless you have Deathstalker or Rexar, then you don't flip the switch.
Oh gosh, I can't play a hunter without that hero power. It's my safety blanket. I can't do it, man. But anyways, hunter is in a pretty good spot right now. We've said this many times, though. Hunter is not a class for beginners.
No, definitely not.
And it has a playstyle unique in itself. It is not just a quote aggro deck or an aggro playstyle. It is a unique aggressive playstyle. So it definitely takes a lot of practice.
Yep.
But if you are an experienced hunter player, feel free to play it. It is still, I think, solidly mid-tier or second tier.
Yeah. The other two classes on there, one we won't talk about because I think we need to play more of it to really settle on it. It's very weird, like Warlock. Just because Defile is, like, I'm certainly far from a master of knowing when to play Defile or how to set up a Defile. There's so much math. There's so much math involved. And so I'm not using its true power. It really changes the way the whole Warlock is played. One thing we do know is that we rated Defile a 188 on our tier list, being the best Warlock card by a significant margin, and that's definitely true. Do not regret that rating at all, but it doesn't mean I'm using that card well enough to justify that, because I know I'm misplaying with it so often. And so it's hard to rate Warlock because right now Warlock is so dependent on that card. That is such a power card. So right now we're putting it in the mid tier, kind of as a hedge. It may end up in the top tier. It's certainly not in the bottom tier. So it may move up. And the other one in this tier is Mage, which I think we should say a couple words on, because this is, I think, the first time Mage has actually fallen out of the top 3 classes in the arena.
Right.
You predicted this.
I did, yeah. Well, so before, I just want to say something about Warlock before we completely move on. I think Warlock is a good example of when the meta shifts a certain way, right? But one class kind of preserves that power, that class will rise up. So when we said that, it's harder to clear the board, right? Basically, it's much harder to take back the board once you've lost it. But Warlock has quite like 3 cards that help them do that. They have Defile, which is, as you stated, just one of the best cards in the game. They have Unwilling Sacrifice, which if you have small stuff, it's just a hard removal. It's not the best hard removal in the world, but it is a hard removal, and those have become more rare as well. Right? And you have Despicable Dreadlord, which is, if you get it down onto the board,
so good.
It's hard for your opponents to get rid of it because of the meta, right? Because those sort of removals and AoEs.
And it has 6 health. It has 5 health. It's plenty of health.
Yeah, it's got 5 health. Once again, surpassing the 4 health threshold, which is still there. So it's really hard for your opponents to get rid of. And now you have a persistent AoE or a persistent ping every single turn from now on, which is amazing, right? So these 3 cards that kind of go against the grain of what the other cards in KFT are doing just elevates Warlock. Anyways, on to the Mage. I think I can't say downfall, but I think the, sort of knocking down of the Mage was very predictable in a way. Because if you look at the play style of Mage before, which was a very control-oriented style in Un'Goro, right? And when you go into the draft, you knew you were drafting a control Mage, like 95% of the time.
Yeah, I really did not like that.
Yeah, that made Mage a little bit boring. I was very bored during my leader board runs of playing Mage, but it also made it very consistent and very powerful, right? If you know exactly the direction you're taking a deck, it refines your picks from the very start, and it just makes your overall deck quality really, really high, right? And that's gone. You don't have the bonuses to Meteor anymore, and you don't have the elemental bonus as well. So you don't have like the super value mages. Also, no more Primordial Glyph into another Meteor, right? So they've been replaced by smaller cards like Breath of Sindragosa and Cold Wraith and Ice Walker. I think those are really good cards, but once again, they are small cards. And Mage is now sort of in this limbo mid-range position where other classes have either gotten much more control-oriented, right? Or they have gotten like really good, I would say, tech cards like the Warlock, and the Warlock has good ways of getting card value anyways, which has left the Mage in the position where they are not always able to out-control other classes, right? But can they go aggro? Well, these small cards that they have gotten, they're not aggressive cards. They're small stall cards. So you need your neutral cards, or you need your non-offering bonus mage cards to really pull through for you.
Right.
And that's hard. Just statistically, that's not going to happen.
Yep.
So that's kind of why mage is at the spot where it's at. It's not a bad class by any means. It
still has the hero power.
Yeah, still has the hero power, still has very powerful cards. You're still gonna, kind of, I'll say, luck into a fireball and a Fire Lance portal every now and again, but it just doesn't have the sheer power and sort of guarantee of value that mages had in Un'Goro.
Yep. That's a pretty good summary. And we're not going to talk about the bottom three classes. It's Priest, Shaman, Warrior. Priest is, I know it's, if you're watching this on YouTube, it looks like they're on the same tier. But if you go to our actual tier list at the lightforge.com, at the bottom of the card tier list, that's where we have our class tier list. It'll always be updated there. You'll see that Priest is actually in its own tier. And we're playing Priest later today. And Shaman and Warrior are in a tier below that. And some people may wonder why Shaman's really that far down. It's just RNG, getting more RNG. Didn't get terribly useful cards this expansion. Can't go fast at all. Missing options. Just not in a good spot right now. And Warrior, of course, also did not get good cards this expansion. And we know Warrior, if you don't get great cards in an expansion, it's not good. And to no one's surprise, Warrior's not good. On top of all that, Warrior's synergized with nothing. So all the synergy pigs are actually doing like a really big disservice to the Warrior. Especially because they don't have their own synergies. Like Warriors don't, the synergy cards right now have still not been updated to give like Warriors weapon synergy. Like
their only synergy card is Hobart, right?
Yep.
Hobart. I forget his last name, but the 2-mana 2/2 that gives your other weapons.
How about the 3-mana 3/4 that buffs your weapon? And I don't care if it buffs your weapon or not. It's a 3-mana 3/4 to help the Warrior. But that's Blizzard's little synergy card pool they're toying around with. And for now, Warrior is total trash tier. We'll see where it goes next week when Blizzard changes more things. So I think that brings us to Question from the GOAT. Question from the GOAT is brought to you by our patrons. Our patrons, top patrons for this month are 4P, Afro Ninja TB, Ingo, Talon, Ugbog, and Zaruvi. Thank you guys so much. Our patron is at patreon.com/grinninggoat. And it's one of the key ways we support all the content that we make, including this podcast. So check it out. Feel free to contribute if you would like. And what is today's question from the GOAT?
Today's question from the GOAT. How about you ask it?
I ask it. I thought I'm supposed to answer it.
No. You ask and you answer it.
Oh, so you just don't want to talk at all?
Well, no. I'm going to contribute.
Okay.
What part of that means that I won't contribute?
Okay, so we've gotten a lot of questions in the last week relating to the post we made about our last Lightforge episode. It was like actually just a post about the Lightforge podcast, and then it was titled "Arena Players Deserve Better." And here is the too long, didn't read summary that I made on the post, which is: Arena needs to be restored as soon as possible, with all KFT cards in the arena and no forced synergy picks. Arena is not a public test server. We do not need to be experimented on with severely underdeveloped ideas. Arena players deserve better. So let's set aside the two things that are less important, one of which is the KFT cards that were not in the meta, because they are in now. And Ixar responded immediately and said they were going to be in very quickly, and they were in the next day. Super quick response from Blizzard. We did not have to make that post to get that response. I have a feeling it was just going to go in at that point anyway, right? The other one is the KFT offering bonus, which we still don't know, and which I don't really care what it is, right? Like, it could be 150, it could be 175, it could be 200. It doesn't matter that much. We would just like to know. But the big thing here is the synergy picks. And the main point of the post and our last Lightforge episode is that this is whatever process that they used to do the testing that said, hey, a pool of, you know, less than 10 cards for each rarity for each class, like repeating through the classes on the neutral cards on the first two picks, is a good idea. Whatever testing process they use to get to that result is a bad process. At that point, you don't blame the results. This is not like there was a bug in the system, some cards couldn't get added correctly. This is like not what happens from a technical perspective. This is we had an idea and we thought this was a good way to implement it, and somewhere in our testing process, no one flagged it as, oh no, this is horrible. And in reality, pretty much everybody, like, it's hard to get this much response on an arena post, so pretty much everybody believes that this is really screwing up the arena. And once we made the post, 7,000 upvotes covered on some media sources. Blizzard responded. Ben Brode's response is the one I actually want to talk about, where most people like had some questions. So do you want to read Ben Brode's entire response, or because I think it's relevant to it, because I'm going to kind of give my response to that now, and I think he says a lot of like very important things. And this is, remember, these are the developers of Blizzard, right? Like, they're responding because they care, and they're responding in the way that they do because that is what they believe. And so one thing to remember, I think, and the reason why we're talking about this now is that I think a decent chunk of the community, I don't know, like, are really interpreting the significance of what Ben Brode wrote in like a completely incorrect manner. Not that anything they're saying is necessarily wrong, but they're missing the point of what's happening here. And I want to stress three things that is actually happening from Ben Brode's post. I don't think some people have picked up on it, but I think it gets covered a lot because he uses a lot of, you know, good PR rhetoric that's meant to do exactly the thing that I think it did accomplish, which is to make it seem like he cares, and he does, and to make it seem like, you know, he's a good guy, which he is, and to make it seem like the problem will be resolved, which it may or may not. But what I want to stress is that it doesn't solve like anything at all, or answer any of our questions at all. And people seem to think that it actually responded to our substantive points, which it does not, and it's kind of typically Blizzard. But do you want to read the actual post before I analyze it?
Sure, I'll read the actual post. So Ben Brode starts off his post by responding to one of the comments that you made.
Yeah, and this is the most important comment, I think, that I made.
Right. So he highlights your comment that we do not deserve to be experimented on with severely underdeveloped ideas. Arena players deserve better, which is that's like the thesis. Yeah, that really is. So Ben Brode replies, with every new thing we add to the game, we learn from community feedback and iterate. Community feedback is a critical part of the process, and the idea that we should only release perfect things that require no feedback is unrealistic. We believe mixing the arena experience up more frequently is better than leaving a single rule set in place forever. Regarding synergy picks, one of the areas we think arena is weak right now is the ability for players to really feel clever during the arena drafting process. Often you pick cards that are individually powerful, but taking a card that is powerful given other cards you might see is very risky. We've been experimenting with different prototypes to try and bring this level of gameplay to Arena, including paper printouts of Hearthstone cards, so we can test without needing engineers to go in and change the whole system before we find out if a change is even fun. It's been difficult to provide the ability for players to chase synergies and to feel clever by doing so, while maintaining the, quote, anything can happen feel that makes Arena awesome. This was a first foray, and the community feedback will feed into our next iteration. We consider Arena, and hell, the entire game, to be a collaboration with the community. I come to Reddit every day. I love reading about and discussing Hearthstone, the development process, and how we can make things better together. I don't want our communities to have a players versus developers vibe. I want to work with players to make the game we all love to play even better. Feedback is critical, but when it's delivered in a way that pits us against each other as factions, it is damaging. Let's work together.
Okay, so let's start with the fact that it's a pretty good PR piece. It ends with "Let's work together." You know, just the way we ended our post with "Arena players deserve better." They're good PR moves. And let's also acknowledge that 90% of what he wrote had nothing to do with what we were complaining about. Instead, what he was writing was about how we should have some synergy picks in the arena, which has nothing to do with the post exactly that we made. The entire problem, which is what he's quoting, is that we do not deserve to be experimented on with severely underdeveloped ideas. So maybe synergies are the way forward. I've stated before, I have no problems with the synergy picks as a concept. They've apparently run it by some pro players. Hafu and Krip are the names that they have mentioned, who seem to generally support the idea of adding more synergy to the arena. I don't have any problem with that. That sounds like an okay idea, and we can debate all day whether that is a good direction or a bad direction for the arena. But all that has nothing to do with the fact that some testing process from Blizzard has come in, gone through the whole process, was okayed by whatever their process is okayed in, and ended up with this result that is something that anybody who touched it and who played a couple of arena runs really, really, really thought was a horribly implemented idea. So with that, his response was that we learn from community feedback and we're going to keep doing it. Like, we like your feedback, so please give us more feedback when we screw up like this, but that this is going to continue to happen. That is the substantive response. Taking out all the PR, taking out all the words that don't address the topic and addresses instead a topic that he probably thinks is more important, but which is not the topic that we think is more important at the moment. And that is that, are we going to be in a permanent arena beta state where the game gets broken every couple times they make a change, like the entire game, you know, in a way that affects every single game, not just a class, not just a card. And then the Blizzard will work at whatever speed they work in to try to make it better and implement their vision that way. Or if there should be a better process internally before this stuff comes out, and so we can play a more pure arena without them coming in until they have a more workable system, in which case they come in, the system is implemented. It's not perfect, but it's not horrible in a way that everybody disagrees with. So I think that's the first point that I want to stress, which is that substantively, Ben Brode has answered our question, which is that we want this to not be in a beta state, and he thinks that it is fine to be. He actually quite defends it. He defends it with a few lines, and that's a position to take. We totally disagree with it. But that is something that I don't think enough people have picked up on. Blizzard took this post that got 7,000 upvotes and responded with, "Oh no, we're not doing that. That's not something we're interested in doing. We instead want to do the exact opposite of that. And we hope that we can work together in doing the opposite of what everybody is upvoting. Can we do that?" That's what I got substantively, taking out all the PR from, you know, his post, from my post, all that. We had a complaint, he isolated our thesis, and he said no. And that's a response, right? Like, I'm happy that Ben Brode gave a response. He didn't have to.
Of course,
it's,
definitely.
Much better communication than nothing. And I think it's quite clear. But I just want to make sure that this is not lost. And I think it gets lost a lot, like in all the discussions I've heard afterwards, whether they're defending us or defending Ben Brode or trying to find another solution or just evaluating the situation. It kind of gets lost that Ben Brode's response was no. Not going to happen at this point. I may change my mind later, I don't know. But at this point, no. Right.
Essentially, because if you look at the thread and you look at a lot of responses, they differ from basically not many people pick up on the fact that he does not address your concerns.
He did. He said no. Like, he addressed the point in like one sentence before he moved on to the points that he wanted to talk about. And in that sentence, he gave a no answer. And people don't seem to realize that he said no. People think he said yes. Like, that's pretty good, like, PR. Like, Ben Brode is a good writer. Like, he has a way with words that makes people think that everything is okay.
And let me just address this, because I can see some people getting very unhappy with this. This is nothing against Ben Brode.
No.
He is a good person. He has done a lot for Hearthstone. There is no debating that. But we are talking about, the future of Arena and sort of future policy changes in the Arena, right? And this is really disappointing and, frankly, pretty scary for us, right?
Because scary, very scary.
Right. The game has been out for a long time. This is the year that they have started tinkering with the Arena, and it's not great. Like, these changes are coming.
These changes are coming. They're major. They change literally everything about the Arena. And if you look at some of the XR responses in the same post, he eventually gets backed into a corner, and people are like, "Have you run this across anybody?" And he's like, "Oh, we've spoken to some pro Arena players. I can't say the exact names, but maybe Hafu and Crip." And there is 0% chance. I have far too much respect for Hafu and Crip as Arena players to believe that any of them looked at the exact changes that Blizzard was proposing to make and said, yeah, that's a good idea. Or even, yeah, that's an okay idea. Or, hey, give it a shot. I'm 100% sure that they have not seen the final result of what was going to be published, of that card pool that was going to be counted as synergy picks. I can believe that, they thought, hey, synergy's generally good. I can even think that, hey, first 2 picks synergy's generally good. But that card pool and the implementation process is the point. And if you're still sitting here wondering, wait, what is the point? The point is that they should have run it by someone, or their internal process should have caught it. This is not rocket science here. This is it's not like the internal process is ever going to be perfect, right? It's going to be patches. There's going to be iterations. We understand that. But whatever's currently happening, whatever current resources are being spent within Blizzard on the internal testing is not enough. And that is proven by this result. That could not have gotten here if it were even remotely reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, if Ben Brode comes up and says hey, actually, we had Crip's full support on all these changes at the end, I would be like, okay, your process is fine. Then, I don't know, I guess I really don't think that's the case. But I just don't think that's happening. And they're coming up with these, it's not really an excuse, it's really just people are asking and they're trying to answer honestly. And that's just their position, right? It's not like they're excusing what they're doing. They're saying this is supposed to happen. It's not sorry, this is what happened. It's hey, this is happening. This is good. We're going to make it better. But this is what's happened. This is the process, and we believe in the process. And this is going to give us a good result, and it's going to get better.
Yep.
Whereas, what I would think the normal response to having screwed up is, hey, let's unscrew up this change. That's pretty easy to pull back, right? You just alter a couple lines of code, and you can get back to the original state of having normal picks for the first 2, and then let's figure it out, and then let's implement a better solution. Implementing more synergy if we want, that's totally fine, but in a way that not everybody hates it. And in the meantime, people can actually play. So the difference here, I think, is that they're not Arena players, and they don't play in the Arena, and they think they could just make it better, and we're in a live, PTR kind of deal. And that is the deal, is what Ben Brode confirmed. We are in a live PTR, and results could be as horrible as this, and this could happen again in the future, because this is fine, because they're going to make it better, and that's what makes it fine.
Part of what scares me is this phrase, we believe mixing the Arena experience up more frequently is better than leaving a single rule set in place forever. And I don't know, just that, from what they've done so far this year, that sentence seems to me to be it's almost like they're, I was gonna say they're turning it into Tavern Brawl, but no, Tavern Brawl is planned ahead, right? Purposefully planned ahead with designed rule sets and sort of a planned experience. This seems to just be really the true definition of mixing it up.
Yeah.
Which
just throw a wrench in it, make it more fun the way we think fun is. Which
doesn't make me feel great.
And even if they do that, I don't even care too much about that. But their like process is so broken at this point that this change came out, right? Like, and they're not like, oh, we're gonna make our process better. They're like, this is a critical part of the process. This right here, this broken part right here, this is part of the process. Literally, community feedback is a critical part of the process. And the idea that we should only release perfect things, which is a horrible, horrible straw man of my argument. Never said we should release only perfect things that require no feedback is unrealistic. So they're saying this feedback that we're giving them by making a Reddit post saying arena players deserve better is part of their process. And rather than pull back the changes and make things better, they're going to make it better live, and it's going to slowly get a little bit better each week until it gets to the point that they're happy with it. And in the meantime, we will just have to play the arena like that or not play the arena at all. That's Ben Brode's literal response substantively, cutting out all the fancy words. Okay, so that's the first and main point that I would just want to make clear. This is not my opinion. This is literally what Ben Brode said. And this is a position that I guess Blizzard can take. There's nothing we can do about it. And they're not like, they weren't shy about taking the position. They tried to bury it a little with like PR language, but you know, they weren't lying, they weren't doing anything, you know, they were just saying like, this is our position, and then let's try not to focus on that, because I think people don't like it.
Right.
Okay, so second thing that I'm worried about is this idea of the casual community, right? Like, he mentions that he's going to get feedback from a lot of places, but one of the main places that he mentions, and I think overall Blizzard places a lot of emphasis on this, is the Hearthstone main forums. It's the official forums from Hearthstone, and generally places where they can get feedback from the people, you know, from the masses. Because we all know, most people that play Hearthstone are not on Arena HS. They're not even on Hearthstone, like the Hearthstone main subreddit. They are far more casual players. And this idea that's been running through all of Hearthstone's development on the constructed side as well, probably more so on the constructed side, is that these casual players need to come first. We're going to try to make things bearable for the competitive side, but generally, like, this is, you know, a game for the casual market. And it creeps up here again. And I think I don't even mind that as a philosophy.
No.
In terms of running a business and all that. My objection to listening to the casuals on this is that the casuals won't mind. If you are a casual player that plays one arena per week, you will not feel that this current meta is better than the last one because you wouldn't know the difference. Further, if you only play one a week, you will not even feel the repetitiveness that is these synergy picks. You will see one elemental draft, one murloc draft, one beast draft in 3 weeks, and you will think, all right, whatever. You probably don't even notice it, right? You probably, like, the number of people who are like, oh, I played a couple arena runs. I was wondering why I was getting these weird picks. I didn't even, like, put 2 and 2 together. Well, you wouldn't. And when it comes to the casual people, these changes don't matter. I don't think that's what Blizzard, I don't think Blizzard has a multiplier here. I don't think they're like, I think they're going with, like, one man, one vote. You know, like, every one of our customers is a valued customer, and their ideas all matter equally. It is all community feedback. You have 1 million people here, you have 1,000 people here, 1 million wins, like, so hard. Instead of, to these 1 million, the changes you make have, like, a 0.01%, you know, factor in them giving you more money, or in them continuing playing, or in them throwing the game away. Whereas, for this 1,000%, for this 1,000 people, if they may be much fewer, but your decisions have a 5 million% impact on them. In comparison, because they are playing arena all the time. They know what's going on, and if you do something weird, they'll pick up on it immediately. And I don't think Blizzard has that multiplier. Like, I think we matter as much as the number of people we can reach. And the forums matter as much as the number of people that exist on their forums. And there's a lot of people on the Hearthstone main forums, and if you read them, the mass majority of them have no idea what they're talking about constructed, and like 90% of them have no idea what they're talking about arena. I mean, like, very basic things. You could just go there yourself and read it. This is not like me being a snob. This is like the reality of what those forums are. And so Blizzard is right that that is a huge part of their market, and they should cater to them, I think. Where they're wrong at, I feel, is that they're mistakenly thinking that the casuals are going to be as swayed by these changes they're making as the hardcore players in general, and more specifically, the more hardcore arena players.
Yeah. I just, I don't know. I think anything I say at this point, I've probably already said, and at this point, I'm just going to cross my fingers, hope for the best, and wait. And like you said before, you know, we know Blizzard's policy right now, right? And any sort of frustration and any sort of disappointment that we have, look, it's not towards Ben Brode as a person, right? It's not towards Ixar as a person. In fact, we appreciate them responding. They could have not responded at all. So I think a lot of
there was a time not too long ago where they did not respond at all.
Respond. So we highly appreciate the feedback. But you know, as we see in this thread, and sort of the feedback that we've gotten publicly and privately, some of it has just been like almost anger that we. And the idea that like we are disappointed with like Ben Brode himself, which is not the point.
No, that's how Ben Brode feels. He's the one that brings this topic up. It's very clever of him, right? I don't want our communities to have a players versus developer vibe. Totally cool, normal sentence, but it implies that the poster did.
Right.
I want to work with players to make the games we all love play even better. Implication, whoever I'm responding to does not seem to want that.
In
good case, PR, very good PR,
right?
Extremely good PR. No substance.
There is no part of this in which we go outside of Blizzard Entertainment making decisions as an entity, right? About the arena. When we express frustration and we express disappointment, it is basically just like we are sad that Blizzard has picked this path and lack of whatever for the arena. And I think that is lost in some part of it. And it's fine if you disagree with us in substance.
It's not lost in part of it. Like, Brode is covering up the part of it. Like, because, and I think, you know, I don't think he's like an evil genius over there. It's like, how do I make these guys look bad? I think he really feels bad. He really feels that that's our intention.
Because he cares a lot about the game.
And that's not our intention. And I think a lot of people, you know, very upvoted posts pick up on that we're just giving regular, pretty legit complaints. And I don't know. I don't want Brode to take this the wrong way if he's listening to this. But the things that he's saying, like, I think we're talking past each other, where we care about the substance and he cares about the PR. And that's fine. I would care about the PR for my game too. But the substance is what we care about, and substantively he and his entire team is very seemingly dead set on going down this path that we think is very wrong. So that hasn't changed. Pretty good communication and like just straight up stating that, right? Like after this we're settled. Like, we're not going to be like, hey, why haven't you reverted synergy changes yet? It was very clear they're not going to. There's nothing much for us to talk about there. We're going to live with it because we have to. But the third point that I want to bring up about this whole thing is this funny thing that he likes that Brode likes to keep talking about. Collaboration with the community. Let's all work together. Feedback is critical. One, we have no power. Whether it's us or like someone bigger like Crip, we have no power. We can't change the game. We definitely can't make the minute changes to the game that we would like to. That's all Blizzard. So when he says work together, that doesn't mean work together in the sense that everyone comes in a room and builds something and then puts it out. That's not what working together means to Ben Brode or any developer, because that's not what working together is when it comes to the community working together with the developer. What he means working together is we should provide feedback, and then he will implement or not implement them. We have provided plenty of feedback. Like, if you go back on the Lightforge, even in the last 6 months, we have provided so much feedback when all the changes were happening. Almost none of it was taken, which is fair because it's their ideas. But to say that we are not collaborating with Blizzard and providing feedback that's just wrong. That's just a false thing. And he doesn't come right out and say it. He just implies it. But moving beyond that, because we have no power and because no one has power except for Blizzard, they can't just turn the responsibility onto the community and say, like, here, you provide feedback and then we'll fix it. And then we provide feedback and then they do whatever they want. Like, that's fine that they do whatever they want, but they have to take responsibilities for their own actions, for their own changes and their own responses and their own mistakes. And throughout this entire thread, in both of the responses from Brode and Ixar, they are not taking responsibility for their mistake or even acknowledging that it is a mistake. I think that is the most troubling part of all of this.
Yeah.
They have said this is exactly what we wanted to do. The next step of the process is exactly what you're doing right now, which is giving us valuable feedback that you guys really, really hate everything about this. And we will take that valuable feedback and we will do something about it to make it better. And we hope you will not still really, really, really hate it. Which again, right? Like, it's that's fine, but take responsibility for what you did. Say like, okay, we apparently thought this was a good idea. It apparently wasn't, but we're going to keep going down this path. Again, it's all PR stuff. I don't know enough about PR to really, like, know if Brode was even capable of admitting it as a mistake, or if there would just be a company policy that says you cannot admit mistakes in public. Especially not, like, in response to a Reddit post. So, it's not like, this is not an objection. This is just, in terms of the perception, this is not actually Ben Brode taking actions to work together with the community. No action has been taken. These are just fluffy words of stuff that has been happening forever, and which has yielded no results, or very little results. The weapons change was eventually made 3 months after we brought it up, even though it was a really obvious change at the time, but no other changes. So when it comes to two-way communication, like, it doesn't really exist. Like, I know Brode's saying, like, we wish there was two-way communication. Well, there's a lot of communication going on. It just gets ignored. And so I don't know if the idea is that Blizzard prefers that we don't say anything, or that we say stuff, and then, like, there's two kinds of people. There's people who want to express themselves, and then they feel like they're heard and they're happy. I'm not that kind of person. I don't care about my feelings.
No.
The other kind of people are, they think they have the right idea, and they're saying it, and they will offer proofs and evidence and all this logic and all this stuff, and when their ideas are heard and rejected, they want a good reason for that. That's who I am. I care about the substance of the arena. When there are good ideas versus bad ideas, and the good ideas are rejected and the bad ideas are taken, and no, like, solid reasons are given for why one thing is going the other way, that's not good communication for Blizzard. That's not good two-way communication from Blizzard's part. To the extent that there's much communication. There's more now than there was before, but I think it's a stretch to say that Team 5 has good communication, right? Like, with this post, we sent DMs to the developers. It's been like a week now. We have not received any responses. Like, not even acknowledging that they have read our DMs. Like, we talked with them over DMs sometimes before, the information of which I can't really divulge. But it's a very misleading thing, I think, for them to keep saying, like, oh, we want communication, when what they really mean is, we will be here and listen to you, and then we'll do whatever we want. And, we have definitely heard you, though. Like, you can confirm that. But we will then go make these changes, and then if they don't work out, we'll say, hey, let's communicate more. We want to hear more. That's a PR move. That's not a substantive move. And what I'm afraid of is that under all this great PR, the substance of the arena is getting destroyed. That's the core of what I'm afraid of.
At the end of the day, like, why do we do this? Why do we do this podcast? Why do we stream? Why do we make the tier list, right? I'll tell you guys right now, it is not a cash cow by any means. We do it because we love the game and we want to see it continue. And I think consistently for ADWCTA and myself, whenever we pitch something or whenever we have a concern about the arena, it is for the future of arena, right? Sometimes we have different visions for what the future of arena is, but we both want the future of arena to be successful and also, like, just very productive, right? Like, very fun, just a great experience. And that's what drives us. And at the end of the day, like, seeing that potentially degrading, it just gets a lot of, I don't know, frustration out of us. It's very sad. It's just very sad.
No. I mean, yeah, like Grim said, we're very, like, if you don't know, we have a Reddit post that, like, reveals all of our finances for the last year. We're very open about all this stuff. We are not, like, pro Hearthstone players or people Blizzard usually talk to. And in one sense, that means we're very independent, right? Like, we can tell Blizzard to go screw themselves and have very little consequences because we're not relying on this to, like, make a living. And we can say how we really feel, and we can represent, whatever portion of the community that agrees with us in a way that other people may not be able to, for better or for worse. and we have there's no like other motivations here, because there's nothing here that helps us. This is coming from two places. One, that we think we know what we're doing. I mean, we think we've repeatedly proven that we know what we're doing. And two, we think they're doing it wrong, and that their responses to it, rather than making things better, is to continue doing it wrong. And again, their game, not ours. So totally okay if they want to keep going and doing wrong things, and that's fine. And we will still play the game until like some critical point, which is not that close. Like, I will continue to play in the synergy meta, assuming they slowly improve it. But I really want to make sure, especially our fans who are listening to this podcast, that you don't believe anything Brode is writing, and that you recognize it for what it is, which is that words-wise, it's for PR. It's like, here's a Reddit post that seems to say we suck. We need to try to make sure we look concerned, because we are concerned, and we want to convey that message. And he did it very well. And I want people to look past that into the substance, which he also provided, which we're really appreciative of, which is the answer no. Right?
Right.
Like, we're not going to do this. We are going to go forth with our process and our vision, which is this. And as part of our process, your feedback will be considered. And that's their position. And I think it is very important for our listeners and for anyone out there to realize that that is the entire substance of his post, rather than finding the sentiment of it, which I think is what he expresses very well as well, right? The sentiment that he does care, and the direction that he's hoping this whole thing takes.
Right. And when we say when you say don't believe Ben Brode's post, he is very genuine in his love of the game and his desire for it to continue.
I mean, don't believe him when he's saying that, like, that is the subject matter. That's his subject matter. Right. He's basically diverting the attention away from the actual subject matter. But we are appreciative, like I said, that he did answer the subject matter in one sentence, right? It's not like he just ignored us totally. But it's easy, right? That's what PR is for. That's why people have entire jobs in the industry. It's to make sure you can write something and come off as good, even if the substance of what you're doing will probably make a lot of people mad. And I think that's what's happening here. I think the substance of what Ben Brode and Team 5 is doing will actually make a lot of people mad. And I think it's kind of successful in that they wrote this PR response, and a lot of people were like, oh, okay then. Even though if I rewrote that in like 3 sentences of substantive content with like no adjectives, they would be like, wait, what? But, you know, for our listeners, I wanted to break down what that post actually meant, in case you hadn't seen it, or you heard it, you know, secondhand, or you had seen it and you didn't look at it too carefully. Anyway, that's what
good question from the GOAT.
Good question from the GOAT, right? Like, and it was not just question from any one person; it was from like a number of people. You know, and that just don't like take Ben Brode's response for what it is, right? Like, and I think he will agree that that's a fair assessment of the intentions as well as the substance behind his post. And at the end of the day, we very much disagree with the direction that the direction of the process that future arena changes are going, and that was the entire point of our post and the entire point of what we're trying to make happen. But yeah, I really hope the thing beyond everything, I think driving all this, that I really hope they get, if any of them are listening to this, or if people can like summarize and like start tweeting at them or something, is that
I don't want any summary of this, because I don't think summaries work.
No, I mean, no, not a summary for all of that, but I mean, like, the one base point that I think underlies all of it and is causing all of their actions, right? We keep saying like their actions are going in a direction we don't want it to go, right? But why?
Sure.
And I think the why is that they really do take this one man, one vote policy very seriously. One customer, one vote. Rather than adding a multiplier for how much your change will affect this customer and how much this customer will care about your change. And I think if they had a proper equation to figure out what impact their changes are actually making in a way that their customers are actually caring about, that they'll start making better changes. And also that we, and when I say we, I don't just mean us, I mean like arena players who know what they're doing, will get their voices taken more seriously. And again, right, this whole thing is not about Blizzard should listen to us exactly. It's that they should listen to someone very specifically. I don't care if they never talk to us and only talk to Hafu and Crip, but they should run their actual changes by Hafu and Crip. They should not like rest it with, oh yeah, you guys like more synergies? Cool. We're gonna make more synergies and then go off and do their own thing. So yeah, all right. We should end this podcast now. And I thought it was a good mix of theory and practice with what's actually in KFT. I'm hungry.
You almost went the podcast getting it correct. Almost.
So close. Maybe next time. But yeah, tune in next week for a deeper analysis of KFT. We did a very summary breakdown of the classes. We did a summary breakdown of the neutrals last time and how to deal with it. We're going to drill deep into a real deep fried meta next week as we get even more experience into the meta on specific plays you make and specific concerns you have to get you that extra win or two. So until then, this is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. See you guys in the arena.
All right. This is not a Shaman Coop. I am going to switch this very quickly into the